Elden Ring spin-off Nightreign has been a success, with FromSoftware announcing they just sold over 5 million copies. I really have to commend director Junya Ishizaki on his first project with his quote-unquote B team for killing it with this game. So now we're 2 months since the launch of the game, and FromSoft has been drip-feeding us content with Everdark bosses. Most recently with Maris, which has the community split whether it's making you go to sleep in-game or in real life, and next up with Caligo, which I really expect to be cinema. Side note, there is apparently going to be a new mode called Deep of the Night, which they have data mined from the files of patch 1.02. I'm hoping this new mode gives us some new skins to flex your depth rank, and it also gives me hope that they will be continuously improving Nightreign. But let's get back on topic. Today we're going to speculate on the Nightreign DLC based on what the game has taught us. Some YouTubers and streamers have actually interacted with Bandai Namco reps and have confirmed that the DLC will have 2 more Nightfarers or playable characters. I didn't catch how many Night Lords there will be, but I'm going to assume it'll be half of what the base game has, so more like 3 or 4. I believe it's safe to assume that the DLC will bring over the Shadow of the Erdtree content from the enemies, bosses, weapons, spells, Ashes of War, etc., the items. Yes, currently in the base Nightreign we do have some DLC bosses like the Yoda looking demi-human and the golden hippo, but it makes sense to me to bring over the Shadow of the Erdtree assets and tweak it to their liking. Like Shadow of the Erdtree, they had a Shadow Altus. I'm going to assume that the base map of this game is going to be a Shadow Limveld. It would make sense for them to introduce a couple more shifting herbs, maybe 2 more. I personally can envision Cerulean Coast and Jagged Peak as a shifting earth, but maybe they'll do Abyssal Woods because it was mostly empty in the DLC. Hopefully they don't take a page out of Miyazaki's book and give us a poison biome. So I think it would be fun to speculate on the 2 Nightfarers that FromSoftware is going to give us. I believe they already have them built out, so it's just going to be fun to speculate what they can do. So I created my own builds based on what they have done in the game with passive skills, active skills, and ultimate art. For the first character I would introduce into the game, I would introduce an ultimate risk versus reward character. This character would be a glass cannon. The initial build would be an armorless Nightfarer similar to the Wretch starting class in Elden Ring. The active skill for this character would be a choice of one of the 2 dragon transformations found in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. You would be able to select what transformation you would want to use, similar to Revenant choosing what summon she would want to pick. Now these transformations should work a little differently than they do in base Elden Ring. You shouldn't have to die to get out of the transformation. Each time you transform, you should be able to be in the mode for a minimum of 5 to 7 minutes, with a 2 to 3 minute cooldown before you can re-enter that form. Now the benefits of the transformations would be like base Elden Ring, where you would get a significant boost to your dragon communion incantations, and you also get an increased 10% damage negation. Again, we are making this the ultimate risk versus reward character, so for the passive skill I would like it to have a 5 to 7% boost to the rune acquisition while you're in your human form. You would automatically lose the rune acquisition boost once you go into the dragon transformations. This would give players the incentive to remain in their human forms to get that additional boost, but they would ultimately hurt their teams because they are taking more damage and outputting less damage. Now let's move on to the ultimate art. I think it would be pretty cool to have different ultimate art depending on what form you're currently in. For example, if you choose to remain in your human form, your ultimate art would be a berserker state where you hulk out and grow bigger than Raider. You fight in this state for 45 seconds, taking significantly less damage and outputting heavy attacks. For the rock-like transformation, the ultimate art would be a dragonkin soldier, but 1/3 of the scale, who does frost damage with a unique moveset, and let's say this one lasts for 30 seconds. Lastly, for the dragon priestess transformation, they would take flight similar to Guardian, but they would remain airborne, where they would transform into a 1/3 scale of a dragon, and they would shoot down a beam similar to Placidusex's Ruin downwards as an AoE attack. This version of the ult should be instant, similar to Wilder or Iron Eye's ultimate attack, so it should be 5 to 7 seconds since it's going to hit very hard. Finally, all characters in Nightreign have a preferred weapon type except for Revenant, so this character's preferred weapon type will be Seals to increase dragon incantations and communion. Moving on to the second character, most people have been asking for a true healer build, and I believe that the next caster should actually be an Elder. Nightreign has introduced new races, so I wouldn't be mad if they added a new race here as well. In my opinion, the best healer class would be a healer monk. The Shadow of the Erdtree DLC introduced dry leaf arts, which is basically a martial arts style, but there's only a couple of them in the game. If we give that dry leaf art movesets exclusively to the monk, it would be a way to circumvent having to find the item, and also give them a way to specialize on a weapon type that most people don't really use. So the preferred weapon type for this character would be fist weapons and claw weapons. Using their unique moveset with the dry leaf arts or martial art style that they would have with the fist weapon and claw weapons would make this character very unique. Since I do expect them to bring over the weapons from the DLC, they would have a much bigger pool of weapons to get as loot from boss drops and use as fist weapons / claw weapons. Since this character is supposed to be the true healer, the passive skill I would give them would be a gradual heal for self and team, similar to the relic, but not much, a very small percent. The active skill should be something epic like a martial arts combo that does heavy damage to the enemy's posture meter. Lastly, since they are the actual healer, their ultimate art would be the incantation Heal from Afar, which they introduced in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. The spell would work just like it does in base Elden Ring, where you literally heal your teammates from afar a large portion of their HP, but it would also be tweaked for Nightreign, where it would also res your teammates even if they have 3 bars. This would make them the third character that would actually be able to res a teammate no matter how many bars they have. This build makes sense to me because it would be a mirror to the Duchess character, where they seem melee focused, but they are leaning more into faith, as Duchess is leaning more into intelligence. But let me know in the comments, what do you guys think of these builds? Would you guys actually have fun with these? Do you think these builds are trash? What builds would you make? I mean, I know a lot of people have been asking for a perfumer build, so let me know in the comments what you guys would like to see. If I get enough feedback, potentially I would make a follow-up video with your builds, emphasizing what skills they would have, ultimate arts, etc. Now let's briefly touch on the Night Lords. I really have no idea what they would look like and how they would attack, but my guess is that these new bosses would have weaknesses to new status effect. One boss can be weak to frostbite, another one to sleep, another one to rot or to magic, but perhaps they even make a Night Lord that has no weaknesses at all. I think it's easier to speculate on the Night 1 and 2 bosses based off what they already taught us in the base game. I don't expect to see Mesmer or Radon from the DLC, but they could do Relana or Midra, since Nightreign did give us Godric and Morgoth. Looking at how they approached the base game, they imported 2 bosses from each of the Dark Souls games and none of the other IPs, which makes sense to me since Sony owns Demon Souls and Bloodborne. Based on the information that we got 2 bosses from each, I'm going to guess that we will get 1 more boss from each Souls game, but I believe that they're going to be 1 boss from each of their DLCs respectively. Unfortunately, I don't think we will get the fantasy battle of a fully healthy Artorias alongside his good boy Sif, because we already have a Wilder wearing an Artorias skin. So perhaps from their DLC they would bring back Manners or an updated Calamite fight. Now, Dark Souls 2 has way more options since they have 3 DLCs. Personally, I would like to see Sir alone, maybe alongside the Fume Knight. And then lastly, for Dark Souls 3, I think we can write off Sister Frida because the Revenant has her skin as an option. So I think it would be pretty epic to bring back Slave Knight Gale as a night boss. But what do you guys think? What bosses would you guys like to see brought back from the previous games? I personally would like to see a lot more than just those bosses. Maybe the Deep of Night Bold would bring a lot more bosses from the previous games. I would like to see the Abyss Watchers, the 4 Kings, maybe even the Pursuer as a random invasion similar to Morgoth. I mean, he showed up like 8 times in Dark Souls 2 and would be a cool threat following you. The first encounter you see him in Dark Souls 2, he's riding a hawk. Can you imagine you take a Spirit Hawk and this hater knocks you out of the sky? I'd also like to see some toxic team-ups like Relana and Pontiff, or Consul Radon and Melania, since they'd be on the same side as Mikola. Perhaps they intend to bring over more bosses in the Deep of Night update, so fingers crossed that we do get a lot better bosses into the game, more variety. Lastly, for the DLC, I am expecting some new skins and some new relics. Perhaps with these new relics they will introduce some new character skills. I personally would like to see a skill for Executor where he would be allowed to parry with any katana as long as he she has a katana, probably with a trade-off where it's less dagger buildup, but at least you can inflict status effects to the enemy. This would work similar to Wilder's follow-up of fiery attack. It needs to have a greatsword or that skill is useless, or Duchess reprisal with a dagger. You need to have a dagger or the restage is not possible, and that skill is useless. But you guys let me know, what kind of skills would you guys like to see added through relics? I personally think they might add the 3 red relic chalice in the DLC, since that's the only chalice we're missing. Going back to the skins, I do assume each character will get one more skin to go along with their Dawn and Darkness one, maybe a Shadow one for the DLC's theme, and maybe even another throwback skin. I would personally like to see a Ornstein armor or a Firekeeper from Dark Souls 3. On a side note, why don't we have Duchess's skin where she wears the cloak? She clearly wears it in the game when I'm not using her. She switches to that skin and I'm not allowed to use it. Why? Give me that skin, FromSoft. Which throwback armor would you guys like to see in Nightreign? Comment down below. Now the DLC is slated for the fall of this year, which is perfectly aligned to not clash with Duskbloods, which makes sense to me. I am happy to see that they are continuously supporting the game, even though they told us this is not a live service game. I mean, we're not paying for anything additional. I'm happy with everything that they are giving us. I am still looking forward and thinking about the longevity of the game. I really think that they should look into crossplay for the longevity of the game, as the player base continuously gets fragmented. We had solos and trios, now we introduce duos. The player bases have already been fragmented to certain bosses. Maybe they're doing remembrances. Now we introduced Everdark bosses. Soon we'll introduce the Deep of Night mode, and now it's gonna get further fragmented once we add a DLC with their bosses, their respective Everdark boss modes, and the Deep of Night, which may correlate with that as well. I'm not sure, but the basis keeps getting fragmented, and as time goes on, I believe the player base would go down. So the crossplay should be something they really should look into, so people can still play even with a lower player count. Perhaps my concerns are unfounded, as I've already seen modders on PC be able to make 6 Nightfarers play together, which is awesome, and I'm sure it's pretty chaotic. But as a supporter of FromSoft games, I would like them to at least look into crossplay. Anyway, I've taken enough of your time today, so please leave a like and comment below if you made it to this point in the video. Let me know what you think of Nightreign overall, what you would like to see improved, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.